King Harris got arrested in a Pikachu onesie and 50 Cent, who has been going back and forth with the Harris family for weeks, now has new material to work with. So, let's look at how this arrest happened, what led up to it, and why 50 Cent of all people is reacting to it. It was around 1 a.m. on Sunday, April 13th, 2026. Somewhere in Gwinnett County, Georgia, near Holcomb Bridge Road and Peachtree Corner Circle, a camo-wrapped Tesla Cibert truck was tearing through a 45 miles per hour zone. The driver, 21-year-old King Harris, the son of T and Tiny, was behind the wheel and officers spotted the Cybertruck speeding near Holcomb Bridge Road and Peachtree Corner Circle. The officer had to reach speeds of 80 miles per hour to catch the vehicle, which continued traveling 60 miles per hour in a 45 miles per hour zone while drifting between lanes and failing to signal. When police finally pulled King over, the situation escalated fast. During the stop, the officer saw a handgun on the dashboard within the driver's reach. Officers ordered King to get out of the car immediately. Harris told the officer he did not realize how fast he was going and was simply on his way to pick up food. He refused to get out of the truck multiple times, leading the officer to tell him he was under arrest for obstruction. But here's where it gets interesting. The son of T and Tiny reportedly refused to leave his vehicle during the traffic stop, while wearing a Pikachu onesie. That's right, a full-body yellow Pikachu costume. And while officers were standing at his window dealing with a visible firearm and a non-compliant driver, King Harris pulled out his phone. During the traffic stop, Harris managed to post a photo of himself in the Pikachu onesie before the officers returned his vehicle. In the photo, you can see Pikachu's face on top of Harris's head. Pikachu got pulled over. He wrote in the caption of his Instagram story, "They not catching this Pikachu tonight. They caught him." He eventually stepped out after talking to his lawyer. After that, he was placed in handcuffs and transported to the Gwinnett County Jail. And that's when things got worse for King. Following his arrest and transport to the jail, staff found one oxycodone pill, a Schedule II controlled substance on him. On top of that, officers noticed a firearm on the dashboard and an open THC container in the center console. So now let's tally this up. Gwinnett County Jail records show Harris faces charges of speeding, failing to wear a seatbelt, and willful obstruction of law enforcement officers. He is also charged with possession of a Schedule II controlled substance. That last one is a felony in the state of Georgia. And the whole time, King was dressed like Pikachu. This is the arrest that is now all over the internet, and it just so happens to land right in the middle of one of the biggest feuds in hip-hop right now, the ongoing war between 50 Cent and the entire Harris family. To understand why 50 Cent would care about King Harris being arrested, you have to rewind to the beginning of 2026 when something that had been simmering for years between 50 Cent and T.I. finally boiled over into an all-out public war. The roots of this particular beef run deep, tangled up in ego, social media provocation, and one rejected Razoo's challenge. Fifth went after T and his loved ones on social media. After the trap, Pioneer accused him of backing out of a Verzu battle he'd already agreed to. That accusation lit a fuse. T felt disrespected, and he let the world know. But 50 Cent, being the provocator that he has always been, didn't fire back with words or music. He went straight to the one place where he does his most devastating damage, Instagram. And he didn't just go after T, he went after T.I.'s wife, Tiny Harris. The apparent jabs come shortly after T.I.'s son, King Harris, hopped online to put 50 Cent on blast in response to his beef with his father. 50 Cent had posted mocking pictures and AI-generated content targeting the family, particularly Tiny, which sent shockwaves through the Harris household. This was more than just a standard rap beef. It was personal, cutting, and deliberately aimed at the people closest to T. That's when King Harris entered the chat. The 21-year-old, who had been watching his parents get dragged online by one of the most famous trolls in hip-hop history, decided he wasn't going to sit on the sidelines. King Harris hopped online to put 50 Cent on blast in response to his beef with his father. He brought up his 2000 shooting, called him out for dissing Lil' Kim after trying to date her, accused him of getting outsold and embarrassed by Kanye West, and much more. King held nothing back. He went after 50 Cent's history, his credibility, his image, everything. It was a scorched earth approach from a young man who felt like his family was under attack. And then he took it a step further. King Harris is not holding back amid his feud with 50 Cent. Even digging up documents dating back to 2009, he took to Instagram to share what looks like an official FBI report dating back to 2009. The document outlines how Fifth allegedly placed an anonymous tip about Lil Lloyd Mack Fletcher's murder investigation. Allegedly, he told officials that he was in fear for his safety and that James Jimmy Henchman Roseman had ordered Lloyd Mack's murder. That's a nuclear option in hip-hop. Posting paperwork alleging that someone cooperated with law enforcement is the ultimate line you can cross. King Harris crossed it with both feet, and then he kept going. T later said, "I said that's enough when I seen that T-shirt," referring to King wearing a shirt with 50 Cent's deceased mother on it. King had a T-shirt printed with an image of 50 Cent's late mother, who passed away when 50 was just 8 years old. He wore it publicly defiantly as a message to 50 Cent. Even T himself acknowledged that his son had gone too far with that particular move. T said, "No, I don't enjoy it," in response to a question about if his kid's responses were enjoyable. "I spent so much time trying to get this Lil Ina off the ledge." Now, he has justifiable means to undo all the teaching that I've been teaching, but despite trying to pump the brakes, T was clearly proud on some level. He did express how proud he is of how King and Domani have protected their mother. "I'm a logical, reasonable man of respect," said T. "I raise my children to be men of respect." 50 Cent, for his part, largely handled King's provocations the way he handles most confrontations from people he considers beneath him with memes, sarcasm, and a refusal to engage on the same level. 50 Cent seemingly responded to T.I.'s son, King Harris, by sharing a Pepe the Frog image, where King was screaming, 50 was laughing, where King was posting FBI documents and wearing memorial T-shirts. 50 was posting cartoon frogs and promoting his Broadway plays. Fifth took to Instagram to take several more shots at the Trap, Pioneer, and his loved ones. He did so while promoting the 2026 Broadway revival of August Wilson's Joe Turner's Come and Gone, which he executive produced opening night April 25th. He captioned the post, "No rappers, no bad BBLs, no little get up albino kids, just sold out Broadway." That particular caption was widely interpreted as a direct shot at King Harris and Tiny. T and his kids have dropped several disses at 50 Cent for either ducking T.I.'s Versus request or dissing Tiny. Fifth himself has yet to make any insults on wax, and it doesn't seem like he plans to do so in the future. 50 was winning the psychological war without ever stepping into a recording booth. He was conducting his attacks from the perfectly curated chaos of his Instagram page, while simultaneously running a television empire and producing Broadway shows. So, when King Harris got arrested in a Pikachu onesie in the middle of the night with a gun on the dashboard, drugs on his person, and a refusal to follow police orders, you can imagine 50 Cent's reaction. What makes this arrest sting even more is that it is not an isolated incident for King Harris. There's a pattern here, and it has been building for years. Each encounter with law enforcement adds another layer of concern, another chapter to a story that keeps repeating itself. This is not the first time Harris has faced legal trouble in Georgia. In 2024, he was accused of nearly hitting a police officer at a Dunwee gas station and was taken into custody after an officer smelled marijuana in his car. That incident was alarming on its own. A young man with a famous last name nearly struck a law enforcement officer with his vehicle. While leaving a gas station, the officer pulled him over, detected the unmistakable scent of marijuana wafting from inside the car, and made a discovery that made everything worse. The officer allegedly smelled weed coming from the vehicle and quickly learned that Harris had a warrant out for his arrest for failure to appear in court. He cooperated and was later booked at DeKalb County Jail. That warrant traced back even further. He was also previously transferred to Pickens County on a bench warrant for failing to appear for a 2022 traffic stop involving speeding and DUI charges. So, at just 17 or 18 years old, King Harris was already dealing with DUI and speeding charges, and then failed to show up for his court date, leading to a bench warrant being issued. Those Pickens County charges were officially dropped in August 2025. The charges eventually went away, but the behavioral pattern did not. And now here we are in April 2026, and the 21-year-old is sitting in the back of another police car in another Georgia county, with another slate of charges that are arguably more serious than anything he's faced before. Given that King Harris faces a felony drug possession charge, the legal consequences could be severe. Georgia law treats controlled substance possession seriously, especially with a prior arrest record. This time there's a felony on the table. This time there was a gun visible on the dashboard. This time there was oxycodone found on his person during the booking process. This time he refused to get out of the car multiple times while officers stood feet away from a loaded weapon. The cavalier attitude during and after. The arrest has drawn its own wave of criticism. In another post, Harris shared a picture of himself flipping off the camera without the costume. He included profanity directed at police, writing explicit messages about the arresting officers. His cavalier attitude towards serious drug possession charges sparked criticism online from followers who questioned his judgment and maturity level. After posting bond and walking out of jail, King didn't retreat. He didn't go quiet. He doubled down. He took to social media to celebrate and show off the entire onesie in a video of himself driving a go-kart. Man, Pikachu is free. FK Team Rocket. He wrote that post turned the arrest into a punchline, his own punchline. And for many watching from the outside, it encapsulated the exact problem. This is a young man facing felony drug charges, caught with firearm within arm's reach. And his first instinct upon release was to film himself in the same Pikachu costume on a go-kart and declare himself free. When you're in a public feud with one of the most notorious provocators in entertainment, and you hand him this kind of ammunition, the consequences extend far beyond the courtroom. Perhaps the most revealing part of this entire saga is what happened when T found out his son had been stopped by police. The Gwinnett County Police Department released video of his arrest and their conversation with his father, Atlanta rapper T. The body cam footage, which the Gwinnett County Police Department subsequently released to the public, tells a story within a story. His father, rapper T, arrived at the scene and was briefed by the arresting officer. T drove to the location on Holcomb Bridge Road, where his son had been pulled over. He got out of his car and approached the officers, not with aggression, but with the deliberate demeanor of a man who has been in handcuffs himself more than once and knows exactly how these situations can spiral. The officer explained the situation plainly. He was instructed to step out of the vehicle because there was a firearm on the dashboard, and we wanted to separate him from that, and he refused. The officer told T.I. the reasoning from law enforcement was straightforward. There was a visible weapon, and they needed to separate the driver from it for everyone's safety. King refused. That refusal is what turned a speeding ticket into an obstruction charge. T.I.'s response to the officer is telling. The Atlanta rapper then asked the officers, did he express his fear for safety? It was a calculated question. T wasn't yelling. He wasn't cursing. He was asking whether his son had verbalized any concern for his own well-being, likely already thinking about how this encounter would play out in court or in the court of public opinion. An officer replied, "We got to be safe, too." That brief exchange captures the tension of the entire situation. A father trying to protect his son, officers trying to protect themselves, and a 21-year-old in a Pikachu costume who had been live streaming the encounter minutes earlier. During the encounter itself, before T.I. arrived, King had pushed back against the officers during the encounter. Harris questioned why he was being forced to step out of the car. "You want me to get out my car to talk to me about what?" Harris asked. The officer responded by citing safety concerns and legal precedent. Harris initially refused to exit the vehicle, leading to a tense standoff where he was warned he would be arrested for obstruction. He eventually complied after speaking with his lawyer on the phone. So, it was his attorney, not his father, who ultimately convinced King to step out of the Cybertruck. By the time T arrived, his son was already in custody, already booked, already charged for T.I. This arrest lands differently than a random piece of internet drama. This is the same man who spent over a year in federal prison on weapons charges. He knows what the inside of a cell looks like. He knows what a felony conviction does to a young man's life. And he watched his son treat the entire ordeal like a joke in front of millions of social media followers. The irony is inescapable. Just weeks earlier in his interview on the Ebro Laura Rosenberg show about King's involvement in the 50 Cent beef, T.I. had spoken about the difficulty of raising his son and trying to keep him on the right path. He had talked about how King now had justifiable means to undo all of the teaching that he had been instilling. And now here was King in a camo-wrapped Cybertruck at 1 a.m., dressed as a Pokemon character with a gun on his dash and a controlled substance on his body. Filming the whole thing for Instagram, his parents, T and Tiny Harris, have not released a public statement about the incident. As of now, neither T nor Tiny has spoken publicly about this latest arrest. The silence speaks volumes when a man is vocal as T goes quiet. It usually means the situation is too serious, too painful, or too complicated to address through social media posts and Instagram captions. And so, we arrive at the center of it all. The man named in the title 50 Cent, Curtis Jackson, the billionaire troll, the man who has turned petty into an art form, and who has never in over 2 decades of public life let an opportunity to gloat pass him by. When news of King Harris's arrest hit the internet, complete with the Pikachu onesie,